I ran away from home at 17 due to parents' abuse and father's SA. 9 years later. My fiancé. No. My name is Maxine, and I am 26 years old. I ran away from home at 17 after enduring years of abuse from my parents, including sexual assault from my father. I thought I had finally found safety and love with my fiancé Ashley until she betrayed me in the worst possible way. She contacted my parents behind my back because she had doubts about my trauma. When confronted, she told me I was being a baby for holding on to things that happened years ago. I called off our wedding immediately. Before I share how I discovered her betrayal, let me know where you are watching from. Hit like and subscribe to support survivors of family abuse. I grew up in what appeared to be a perfect middle-class suburban neighborhood in Minnesota. Our house was always immaculate with a beautiful garden that my mother Sandra meticulously maintained. From the outside, we seemed like the ideal American family. My father Michael was an insurance executive who charmed everyone he met. He volunteered at community events and was respected by neighbors and colleagues alike. My mother worked as a nurse at the local hospital, always ready with homemade cookies and a sympathetic ear for others. But inside our home behind closed doors lived a completely different reality. The earliest memories I have of my father are of his critical voice. Nothing I did was ever good enough. If I brought home an A-, he would question why it was not an A+. If I cleaned my room, he would find the one spot I missed. His criticism was relentless, picking apart everything from my appearance to my voice to my interests. He would often tell me I was worthless, that I would never amount to anything, that I was a disappointment. My mother was no better. While she rarely initiated the abuse, she enabled it completely. She would stand by silently as my father berated me, sometimes even joining in. Her favorite phrase was, "Your father knows best." She never once stood up for me or protected me. Instead, she would often blame me for provoking him. The contrast with how they treated my younger brother Zachary was stark and painful. He was 3 years younger than me and could do no wrong in their eyes. He got the newest toys, the praise, the encouragement, while I was the family scapegoat. I often wondered what was wrong with me, why they could love him, but not me. My parents isolated me from the beginning. They limited my friendships, claiming other children were bad influences. Playdates were rare and strictly supervised. Birthday parties were small affairs with only family members present. As I got older, they would find reasons to ground me right before social events. They checked my phone, read my diary, and monitored my every move. The isolation was deliberate and effective. There were people who suspected something was wrong. Mrs. Thompson, my 4th-grade teacher, once asked me about some bruises on my arm. I gave her the explanation my father had prepared. I fell off my bike. She looked like she wanted to say more, but never did. Our neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, once overheard my father shouting at me and gave him a strange look the next day, but nothing came of it. People saw glimpses of the truth, but chose to look away. The physical abuse started when I was around 12. The first time I had accidentally spilled juice on the carpet. My father grabbed my arm so hard it left fingerprint bruises that lasted for days. After that, it escalated. A slap for talking back, a shove for being in the way, being thrown against a wall for getting home 10 minutes late. I became expert at covering bruises with clothing, makeup, and excuses. School became my sanctuary and my hope for escape. I threw myself into academics, knowing that education was my only ticket out. I joined every club I could, volunteered for every event, anything to stay away from home as long as possible. I maintained a perfect GPA despite the chaos at home. My teachers praised my dedication, never knowing it was survival rather than ambition that drove me. As I entered my teenage years, my father became increasingly controlling. He dictated what I could wear, forbidding anything he deemed too revealing, which included even modest t-shirts and jeans. He would inspect my outfits before school and make me change if he disapproved. He began commenting on my developing body in ways that made me deeply uncomfortable. My mother noticed but said nothing. I tried to reach out for help several times. When I was 14, I attempted to tell my school counselor, Ms. Garcia, about the emotional abuse. She called my parents in for a meeting. They were charming and concerned, expressing surprise at my claims. My father suggested I was going through a difficult adolescent phase and making things up for attention. Ms. Garcia believed them. The abuse worsened after that, with my father adding liar to his list of insults. At 15, I confided in my best friend Jessica about the physical abuse. She urged me to call Child Protective Services, but I was too scared. When her mother overheard us and called my parents out of concern, my father convinced them I was exaggerating typical parental discipline. Jessica was no longer allowed to visit our home, and I lost my only close friend. By 16, I had a part-time job at a local grocery store. My parents took most of my paycheck, claiming it was for room and board, but I managed to secretly save some money. I knew by then that no one was going to rescue me. If I wanted to escape, I would have to do it myself. I began researching what I would need to survive on my own. I started collecting important documents, making copies when I could. I researched GED requirements, knowing I might have to leave before finishing high school. The emotional toll was immense. I suffered from chronic anxiety, insomnia, and depression. I had panic attacks in bathroom stalls at school. I developed nervous habits like picking at my skin and pulling my hair. Yet somehow I maintained my grades and my facade of normalcy. No one saw the crumbling girl behind the accomplished student. My father had everyone fooled. At parent-teacher conferences, he was proud and supportive. At church, he was devout and generous. At neighborhood gatherings, he was friendly and helpful. People would tell me how lucky I was to have such a wonderful father. Each time I felt like I was living in some twisted alternate reality where nothing made sense. My mother was his perfect accomplice. She cleaned my wounds after he hurt me, telling me to be more careful next time, as if my actions had caused his violence. She threw away clothes he damaged during his rages. She called the school with excuses when I was too injured to attend. She maintained our family image at all costs, and that cost was my safety and well-being. As my 17th birthday approached, I had a plan forming. I would finish the school year, take my GED over the summer, and leave before college applications were due. I would have a few more months to save money and gather resources. I thought I could endure a few more months of hell for the sake of a more stable escape. But fate had other plans far worse than anything I had endured before. The night that changed everything happened just 2 weeks after my 17th birthday. My mother was working an overnight shift at the hospital, something that rarely happened, but left me alone with my father and brother. Zachary was at a sleepover, which was also unusual. Looking back, I wonder if my father had planned it all. I was in my bedroom studying for a chemistry test when my father came in without knocking. He had been drinking, which always made him more unpredictable. He sat on the edge of my bed too close and began talking about how I was becoming a woman now. His words and his eyes made my skin crawl. I tried to redirect the conversation to mention my test, anything to change the subject. But he reached out and touched my hair, then my face, then lower. What happened next still haunts my nightmares. I fought. I screamed. I begged. Nothing stopped him. He was stronger, and there was no one to hear me. When it was finally over, he left my room as if nothing unusual had happened. I lay there broken in ways I had never been before. I knew in that moment that if I stayed, it would happen again. This was a line crossed that could never be uncrossed. I could not wait for my carefully planned escape timeline. I had to leave immediately. Through my tears and pain, I began to pack. I took only what would fit in my school backpack. A few changes of clothes, my hidden cash, about $400 saved from my job, my birth certificate and social security card that I had previously secured, my school ID and a small photo album of happier times, a toothbrush and minimal toiletries, my phone and charger. I waited until I heard my father's snores from his bedroom. It was nearly 3 in the morning. I crept down the stairs, careful to avoid the third step that always creaked. I took some food from the kitchen, non-perishable items that would not be missed immediately. I grabbed an extra jacket from the coat closet. And then, with one last look at the house that had been my prison for 17 years, I walked out the front door. The night was cold, even for Minnesota in April. I had nowhere to go, no one to call. My friends were few, and their parents all knew my father. I walked for hours, staying in well-lit areas, terrified he would wake up and come looking for me. By dawn, I found myself at the home of Mrs. Miller, my English teacher. She had always been kind to me, had seemed to see through my facade more than others. I sat on her porch shivering until the lights came on inside. The look on Mrs. Miller's face when she opened her door and found me there is something I will never forget. Not pity, but a deep sadness mixed with understanding, as if she had been expecting me someday. I broke down then, telling her everything through tears and gasps. She brought me inside, made me tea, and listened without judgment. Mrs. Miller let me stay in her guest room for 2 weeks. She helped me file a police report about the sexual assault, though she prepared me for the likelihood that it would go nowhere. She was right. My mother stood by my father, claimed I was mentally unstable and making up stories for attention. Without evidence and with a parent contradicting me, the case was quickly dropped. Mrs. Miller also helped me get my GED instead of finishing high school. She connected me with a youth shelter that had resources for abuse victims. The staff there helped me apply for emergency assistance and find a job at a diner. They provided counseling services, though at that time I was too traumatized to fully engage. I changed my phone number and created new social media accounts under a slightly different name. I could not risk my father finding me. The thought of seeing him again triggered panic attacks so severe I could not breathe. About a month after I left, my brother Zachary found me at the diner. I never learned how. He begged me to come home, said our parents were worried sick, that father was sorry and wanted to make amends. When I refused, his tone changed. He called me selfish, said I was tearing the family apart, that mother was crying every night. He had been so thoroughly brainwashed by them that he could not see the truth. That was the last time I spoke to any member of my family for many years. The youth shelter had a 6-month maximum stay policy. By the time I needed to leave, I had saved enough for a bus ticket and first month's rent on a tiny room in Portland, Oregon. I chose Portland because it was far from Minnesota, and I had read it had good resources for homeless youth and survivors of abuse. Those first months in Portland were some of the hardest of my life. I worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs. I was a waitress in the mornings, a retail clerk in the evenings, and a night cleaner on weekends. I slept maybe 4 hours a night. I lived on ramen noodles and day-old bread from the bakery where one of my coworkers slipped me leftovers. I was constantly exhausted and constantly afraid. The nightmares were relentless. I would wake up screaming, soaked in sweat, certain my father was in the room. My few neighbors probably thought I was mentally ill or on drugs. I trusted no one, especially men. I flinched at loud noises and sudden movements. I carried pepper spray and a knife at all times. I took different routes home each day to ensure I was not being followed. 6 months after arriving in Portland, I found a free support group for survivors of sexual assault. It was there that I met Denise, the therapist, who would eventually help me begin healing. She recognized the signs of severe PTSD and helped me get connected with a community mental health clinic that offered sliding scale therapy. I could only afford to go once a month at first, but even that made a difference. Over the next year, I slowly began to stabilize. I found a slightly better apartment with a roommate, another survivor named Taylor, who understood my nighttime terrors. I secured a more stable job as a receptionist at a dental office with regular hours and better pay. I enrolled in community college part-time, taking 1 or 2 classes each semester. I still had no contact with my family. Sometimes I would see a man who resembled my father and have to rush to a bathroom to vomit. Sometimes I would hear a laugh that sounded like my mother's and freeze in terror. But slowly, so slowly, I was building a new life for myself. 4 years after my escape, I had transformed my life. I was working full-time as an administrative assistant at a marketing firm while finishing my bachelor's degree in marketing. I had my own studio apartment, small but safe, with a door that had 3 locks. I had made friends at school and work people who knew pieces of my story, but not all of it. I was still in therapy now twice a month with Dr. Harrison, who specialized in complex trauma. My best friend by then was Jasmine, a graphic designer at the marketing firm. She was the first person I told my complete story to other than therapists and counselors. She listened without judgment, held me when I cried, and never once questioned the truth of my experience. She became the sister I never had, my first real family member. Jasmine introduced me to her wide circle of friends, easing my social anxiety by staying close during gatherings. She helped me navigate dating again, something I had avoided entirely until age 23. My first few attempts at dating were disastrous. I panicked during intimate moments. I was hypervigilant about tiny signs of controlling behavior. I misinterpreted normal disagreements as danger warnings. But with time and therapy, I learned to distinguish between healthy and unhealthy interactions. My career was progressing as well. My bosses at the marketing firm recognized my work ethic and talent. I was promoted to junior marketing associate before I even completed my degree. I found that I had a knack for understanding consumer psychology, perhaps because I had spent my childhood hyper-aware of adult moods and reactions. I was building professional confidence to match my personal progress. It was at a birthday party for one of Jasmine's friends that I met Ashley. She was laughing in the kitchen, helping to frost cupcakes when I walked in to get a drink. Her smile was the first thing I noticed, warm and genuine. She introduced herself immediately, asked me questions, and actually listened to my answers. There was something about her that put me at ease, a rare feeling for me. We exchanged numbers that night, and she texted the very next day. Our first date was at a quiet cafe where we talked for hours. She was a veterinary technician who loved animals and volunteered at shelters. She was close with her family, especially her younger sister Natalie. She was kind to waitstaff, tipped generously, and held doors open for people. She never pushed for physical contact, seeming content to move at whatever pace felt comfortable for me. Over the next few months, we saw each other regularly. I was cautious still, but increasingly drawn to her gentle nature. She was patient when I flinched at sudden movements. She asked before touching me, somehow sensing my boundaries without me having to explain. When I had a panic attack after a car backfired near us, she sat with me, helped me breathe, and never made me feel broken. 6 months into our relationship, I shared some of my past with her. Not everything just broad strokes about an abusive childhood and cutting ties with my family. She listened attentively, held my hand, and thanked me for trusting her. She said all the right things, that it was not my fault, that I was incredibly strong, that she was honored to be part of my life. I felt understood and accepted. As our relationship deepened, I shared more details. By our 1-year anniversary, she knew almost everything, including the sexual assault. She cried with me when I described my escape. She expressed appropriate anger at my parents. She supported my continued therapy. She never pressured me to reconcile with my family or suggested I should get over it. She seemed to truly understand trauma. We moved in together after dating for 15 months. Our apartment was bright and airy, the opposite of the oppressive darkness of my childhood home. We adopted a rescue cat named Milo, who became my comfort during anxiety attacks. We developed routines and traditions that felt like healing. Sunday morning pancakes, Friday night movies, little notes left in lunch bags. For the first time, I experienced what a loving home could feel like. My career continued to flourish. I was promoted to marketing manager with my own small team. Ashley supported my ambitions, celebrating each accomplishment. I did the same for her when she was accepted into a specialized veterinary technician certification program. We were building lives both together and individually, a healthy balance I had never witnessed in my parents' relationship. Ashley introduced me to her family, gradually sensing my anxiety around family dynamics. Her father, Thomas, was a kind, soft-spoken high school teacher. Her mother, Diana, was a bustling, affectionate woman who cooked enough for an army at every meal. Her brother, James, was thoughtful and intellectual, while her sister, Natalie, was bubbly and creative. They welcomed me warmly, never pushing for information about my own family. Being around Ashley's family was both wonderful and painful. I loved seeing what a healthy family looked like, but it highlighted everything I had missed. Sometimes I would excuse myself during their family dinners, overcome by a complex mix of gratitude and grief. Ashley always noticed, always followed to check on me, never made me feel bad for my emotional responses. After 2 years together, during a walk through the Portland Japanese garden on a perfect spring day, Ashley proposed. She had arranged for a photographer to capture the moment hidden among the trees. She knelt among the cherry blossoms, presented a simple but elegant ring, and asked me to build a life with her. It was the easiest yes I had ever said. The first few weeks after our engagement were pure joy. We celebrated with friends, posted photos online, and basked in the happiness of our decision. Ashley's family threw us an engagement party at their home with champagne toasts and heartfelt speeches. My chosen family, the friends who had supported me through my healing journey, celebrated us with a separate gathering organized by Jasmine. Wedding planning began casually at first. We browsed venues online, discussed color schemes, and debated band versus DJ. I had always imagined a small, intimate wedding with just our closest friends. Ashley seemed on the same page initially, but as weeks passed, I noticed her vision expanding. It started with comments about church venues, though neither of us was particularly religious. Then came discussions of large guest lists, including distant relatives and family friends. She began collecting bridal magazines and following wedding planners on social media. Her mother Diana called frequently with ideas and suggestions, each one pushing toward a more traditional family-centered celebration. The first time Ashley subtly mentioned my family was about a month into our engagement. We were discussing the wedding party, and she asked if I had any cousins I might want as bridesmaids. I reminded her gently that I had no contact with any family members. She nodded understanding, but I caught a flicker of something in her expression, a brief hesitation. As planning continued, Ashley's mother asked increasingly direct questions about my family. Where had I grown up? Would my parents be walking me down the aisle? Did I have siblings who would want to participate? I created vague answers saying my family was not in the picture due to complicated relationships. Diana seemed puzzled but did not press. One evening over dinner, Ashley casually mentioned that wedding traditions were important, that every bride deserved her father-daughter dance, that we would regret not having certain family members present on our special day. When I reminded her firmly that my family was dangerous to my well-being, she backtracked saying she understood, but her tone suggested otherwise. We spent a weekend with Ashley's family about 3 months into our engagement. They had converted their basement into a wedding planning headquarters with boards of fabric swatches and flower arrangements. Diana had created a detailed spreadsheet of potential guests. The family spent hours sharing stories of other family weddings, talking about traditions and expectations. I felt increasingly alienated and anxious. During that weekend, Thomas Ashley's father asked me privately why my parents were not involved in the wedding planning. His tone was kind but confused. He said he could not imagine missing his daughter's wedding, that surely there was a way to mend fences. I realized Ashley had not fully explained my situation to her family, leaving them to draw their own conclusions about a simple estrangement rather than abuse. Our first major argument about the wedding happened after that weekend. Ashley suggested we could at least send my parents an announcement or invitation as a gesture of reconciliation. When I reacted with shock, she said something that chilled me. Everyone deserves forgiveness, Maxine. It has been 9 years. People change. I tried to explain again the severity of what I had experienced, that this was not a petty disagreement or minor hurt feelings, that my father had physically and sexually abused me, that my mother had enabled and sometimes participated in the abuse, that they had never shown remorse or accepted responsibility. Ashley listened, apologized, and promised to drop the subject. I believed her, but a seed of doubt had been planted. As wedding planning progressed, Ashley grew closer to her mother. They went dress shopping without me, selected potential venues without my input, and began making decisions I only learned about afterward. When I expressed concern about being excluded, Ashley said she was trying to reduce my stress, knowing wedding planning might trigger difficult family memories. 6 months into our engagement, I noticed Ashley growing secretive about her phone and laptop. She would end calls when I entered the room, close browser windows quickly, and take her phone with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. At the time, I attributed it to surprise wedding plans. I trusted her completely and never imagined betrayal. The discovery happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I had come home early from work with a migraine. Ashley was at a continuing education seminar for vet techs and would not be home until evening. I took medication and lay down in our bedroom to rest, but could not fall asleep. I decided to watch a show on Netflix to distract from the pain. My laptop was charging in my office, so I grabbed Ashley's from the living room coffee table where she had left it. When I opened it, the screen lit up already unlocked. An email was open in the browser. The subject line caught my attention immediately. Re-wedding discussion. Michael and Sandra Collins. My parents' names on my fiancé's computer. My hands began to shake so violently I nearly dropped the laptop. I felt physically ill, a wave of nausea washing over me. But I forced myself to read. The email thread was extensive, dating back nearly 2 months. Ashley had initiated contact, introducing herself as my fiancée and explaining that we were getting married in the spring. She wrote that I had shared some concerning stories about my childhood, but that she had her doubts about the severity and wanted to hear their side. My father's response was exactly what I would have expected. He expressed shock and concern about my mental state. He claimed I had always been troubled and prone to exaggeration. He suggested I had run away as a rebellious teen after they set reasonable boundaries. He portrayed himself as the worried, heartbroken father who had spent years searching for his daughter. He made no mention of the police report, the sexual assault, the years of abuse. My mother's emails were manipulative in different ways. She played the devastated mother, claiming she had cried herself to sleep for years not knowing if I was alive or dead. She said they had hired private investigators who never found me. She subtly suggested that I had fabricated the abuse as a way of justifying my abandonment of the family. She begged Ashley to help reunite us, saying it would be the greatest wedding gift possible. Ashley's responses made me physically sick. She expressed sympathy for their suffering. She shared details about my life, my job, our relationship. She told them about my therapy for alleged trauma. She sent them pictures of me, of us, of our home. She gave them information I had spent years protecting. The most recent emails were the most devastating. Ashley had arranged to meet my mother for coffee when she claimed to be at a work conference the previous month. The meeting had gone wonderfully, according to my mother's follow-up email. Ashley wrote that she was beginning to understand the situation better and agreed there were two sides to every story. The final email in the thread was the worst. Ashley and my parents had arranged for them to attend our engagement party as a surprise. They had discussed how to handle my potential reaction with Ashley, assuring them she would make sure Maxine behaves maturely and sees the importance of family healing. I read everything twice, my migraine forgotten, replaced by a pain far worse. I took screenshots of the emails, sending them to my own account as evidence. Then I closed the laptop and placed it exactly where I had found it. I rushed to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left in my stomach. The next hours were a blur. I sat on our bed, unable to move, unable to think clearly. I did not respond to texts from Ashley asking how I was feeling. I canceled my afternoon meetings. I just sat trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal. Ashley arrived home around 6, calling my name cheerfully. I heard her puttering in the kitchen, probably starting dinner. I did not respond. Eventually, she came to the bedroom, concerned about my silence. One look at my face and she knew. Her expression shifted from worry to guilt in an instant. "You saw the emails," she said, not a question. The conversation that followed was one of the most painful of my life. Ashley tried to justify her actions, claiming she was trying to help me heal, to give me back my family. When I asked how she could possibly doubt my account of sexual assault, she said she thought I might be misremembering or exaggerating due to trauma. "I just find it hard to believe a father could do that to his daughter," she said, as if her disbelief somehow trumped my lived experience. "And your mother seems so nice and normal. She showed me your childhood photos. You looked happy." When I described again the horror of what I had endured, she listened with arms crossed, a skeptical expression on her face. Then came the statement that ended our relationship. "Maxine, you need to grow up and stop being a baby about things that happened years ago. Everyone has family problems. You cannot hold on to this forever. My parents fought sometimes too, but I would never cut them off. Family is family." In that moment, I saw Ashley clearly for the first time. Despite 2 years together, despite all my vulnerability and trust, she had never truly believed me. She had nodded and said the right things, but deep down she thought I was exaggerating, being dramatic, holding unnecessary grudges. And when given the chance, she had gone behind my back to contact the people who had nearly destroyed me. "The wedding is off," I said quietly. "We are done." I packed an overnight bag while Ashley cried and begged for another chance. She followed me around the apartment, alternating between apologies and defenses of her actions. I did not respond. I was in shock, moving mechanically, focused only on escaping the immediate situation. I called Jasmine, who immediately told me to come to her apartment. I ordered a rideshare, not trusting myself to drive in my emotional state. As I waited outside our building for the car, Ashley came out, still pleading. I put in earphones and turned my back until the car arrived. At Jasmine's apartment, I finally broke down completely. I showed her the screenshots of the emails. Her reaction validated my own pure horror and outrage. She held me while I sobbed, made me tea, and promised I could stay as long as I needed. She never once suggested I was overreacting or should reconsider. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Ashley, which Jasmine eventually took and silenced. Ashley's messages ranged from tearful apologies to defenses that she was just trying to help, to accusations that I was being unfair and impulsive. Each message only confirmed that she fundamentally did not understand the magnitude of her betrayal. The next morning, I called Dr. Harrison and explained the situation. She squeezed me into her schedule for an emergency session that afternoon. She validated that Ashley's actions were a profound breach of trust and violation of boundaries. She helped me process the immediate shock and develop a short-term plan for safety and stability. Over the next few days, my PTSD symptoms returned in full force. I had nightmares about my father finding me. I experienced flashbacks to the assault. I jumped at loud noises and could not bear to be touched even by Jasmine. I called in sick to work, unable to function normally. Ashley showed up at Jasmine's apartment 3 days after our breakup. She brought flowers and a handwritten letter. Jasmine asked if I wanted to see her, and I agreed, feeling I needed closure. We sat in Jasmine's living room with Jasmine in the kitchen nearby in case I needed support. The conversation revealed that Ashley still did not truly understand what she had done wrong. She apologized for going behind my back, but maintained that her intentions were good. She said things like, "I just wanted you to have your family at our wedding," and "I thought if you just talked to them, you could resolve things." She admitted she had continued corresponding with my mother even after our breakup. When I explained again how her actions had re-traumatized me and put me potentially in danger, she seemed skeptical. "It has been 9 years, Maxine. Your father is an old man now. Your mother misses you terribly. People change." I realized then that the gulf between us was unbridgeable. Ashley could not or would not understand the nature of abuse, the lifetime impact of trauma, or the importance of believing victims. Our relationship had been built on a foundation where one person did not truly see or believe the other. There was no going forward from that realization. Within days, Ashley's family began reaching out. Her mother, Diana, called, leaving tearful voicemails about family healing and forgiveness. Her father, Thomas, texted saying he was sure we could work things out with proper communication. Her sister, Natalie, sent a long email about not throwing away love over past hurts. Only her brother, James, sent a brief message saying he understood my position and wished me healing. The pressure from Ashley and her family was intense. They shared a worldview where family relationships were paramount, where reconciliation was always possible and desirable, where forgiveness meant resuming contact regardless of risk or ongoing harm. It was clear they saw me as the villain in this scenario, the unreasonable one destroying a good relationship over stubbornness. A week after the breakup, I returned to the apartment while Ashley was at work to collect more of my belongings. Seeing our home, our shared life, was deeply painful. Milo the cat wound around my ankles, confused by my absence. Photos of our happy times still hung on the walls. The life we had planned together was visible in every corner. I found a note from Ashley on the kitchen counter begging me to reconsider, saying she had only contacted my parents because she wanted our wedding to be perfect. That she could not bear the thought of me not having family present on our special day. That she had been trying to create the perfect wedding experience for me. Even in her apology, she centered her own vision rather than my needs and boundaries. I learned from mutual friends that Ashley was telling people I had ended our engagement over wedding stress and family drama. She positioned herself as the caring partner trying to help me reconcile with estranged family, while I was portrayed as emotionally unstable and unwilling to forgive past slights. Some friends believed her narrative. Others reached out to check on me, sensing there was more to the story. 2 weeks after the breakup, I secured a small furnished apartment on a month-to-month lease. I arranged to move out of our shared apartment entirely, while Ashley was visiting her parents for the weekend. Jasmine and a few loyal friends helped me pack and transport my belongings. I left my key and the engagement ring on the kitchen table with a brief note asking Ashley not to contact me again. The logistics of untangling our lives were complicated and painful. Canceling wedding vendors, notifying guests that the wedding was off, separating our finances, deciding who would keep which furniture and household items. Each task was a reminder of the future I had lost, not because of my decision to end things, but because of Ashley's fundamental betrayal. The weeks immediately following the breakup were some of the darkest of my adult life. The betrayal by Ashley had reopened all my old wounds and created new ones. I questioned my ability to trust my own judgment. If I had been so wrong about her, what else was I wrong about? If someone who claimed to love me could dismiss and doubt my trauma so completely, who would ever truly believe me? My new apartment was sparse and impersonal, but it was safe. I installed extra locks and a security camera, paranoid that Ashley might have shared my new address with my parents. I took different routes to work each day, looking over my shoulder constantly. The hypervigilance I had gradually overcome in years of therapy returned in full force. Jasmine organized a rotation of friends to check on me, bringing meals, offering company when I wanted it, giving space when I needed it. My support system rallied around me in ways that showed me I was not alone, that some people did believe and value me. Their steadfast support was a lifeline during those early days when getting out of bed felt impossible. I returned to therapy twice weekly with Dr. Harrison. She helped me process not just the betrayal by Ashley, but the re-traumatization of having my abuse history doubted and dismissed. We worked on grounding techniques for the panic attacks, strategies for managing the renewed nightmares, and frameworks for understanding that Ashley's betrayal reflected her limitations, not my worth. Returning to work was challenging. Colleagues were aware I had called off my engagement, but did not know why. Some offered sympathy, others awkward silence. I crafted a simple statement that the relationship had ended due to irreconcilable differences, and left it at that. I threw myself into projects, finding solace in the structured, logical world of marketing strategies and campaigns. About a month after our breakup, I received an unexpected message from James, Ashley's brother. He asked if we could meet for coffee, promising he came in peace and alone. Curious and cautious, I agreed to a brief meeting in a public cafe. James surprised me by offering a sincere apology for his family's behavior. He explained that while Ashley had initially portrayed me as unreasonably estranged from my family, he had suspected there was more to the story. When he pressed Ashley after our breakup, she had finally shared more details about my abuse history, though still with skepticism about its severity. Unlike the rest of his family, James had worked briefly as a volunteer at a domestic violence shelter during college. He understood the dynamics of abuse, the importance of believing survivors, and the danger of forced reconciliation. He validated my decision to end the relationship and assured me he had not and would not share any information about me with my parents. James also shared something that helped me understand Ashley's behavior better, though it did not excuse it. Apparently, Diana, Ashley's mother, had been the driving force behind contacting my parents. She had pressed Ashley repeatedly about the absence of my family in wedding planning, insisting that no mother should miss her daughter's wedding. Diana had convinced Ashley that helping me fix my family relationships would be the ultimate act of love. Ashley, deeply influenced by her mother's opinions and raised in a family that valued family ties above all else, had eventually given in to the pressure. This information provided context but did not change my decision. Ashley was an adult who had made her own choices, who had violated my trust and boundaries, who had contacted my abusers behind my back. Understanding the family pressure she faced helped me feel less personally deceived, but it reinforced that we had fundamentally different values and understandings of family abuse and respect. About 6 months after the breakup, I ran into Ashley at a coffee shop we had both frequented during our relationship. She looked tired, thinner. She asked if we could talk briefly, and I agreed, feeling strong enough by then to have a short conversation. She told me she had started therapy herself, that she was beginning to understand more about abuse dynamics and trauma. She acknowledged that she had been wrong to contact my parents and expressed what seemed like genuine remorse. But in almost the same breath, she suggested that perhaps someday, with proper professional mediation, I might consider some form of controlled contact with my family. It was clear that despite some growth, she still did not fully grasp the situation. She was still attached to the narrative of eventual reconciliation of family bonds, transcending even the worst abuses. I wished her well, but reaffirmed that our relationship was over permanently. We parted civilly, and I felt a weight lift as I watched her walk away. I was finally confident in my decision. As the one-year anniversary of our breakup approached, I found myself reflecting on how far I had come. The acute pain had subsided into a dull ache that surfaced occasionally, but no longer dominated my days. I had maintained my boundaries, refusing attempts by Ashley's family to mediate or persuade me to reconsider. I had advanced in my career, receiving another promotion to senior marketing position with even more responsibility and creative control. I had started dating again very cautiously. A few coffee meetings, a dinner here and there, nothing serious yet, but steps toward trusting again. I was transparent with potential partners about my trauma history and my need for someone who would believe and respect my experiences. I was no longer willing to compromise on being believed. Through a trauma survivors support group, I had met Rachel, a fellow survivor who became a close friend. Unlike well-meaning but uncomprehending friends, Rachel truly understood the ongoing impact of childhood abuse, the complexity of trauma responses, the importance of maintaining boundaries with abusers. Our friendship was healing in ways different from my other relationships. The most unexpected development came 2 years after my breakup with Ashley. I received an email from an unfamiliar address, but the subject line caught my attention. From your brother Zachary, no pressure to respond. With trepidation, I opened it. The email was long and thoughtful. Zachary explained that he had gone to therapy himself after his marriage nearly ended due to his controlling behaviors. Through therapy, he had come to recognize the abuse dynamics in our childhood home and his role as the golden child. He acknowledged the different treatment I had received and expressed deep remorse for not protecting me or believing me when I escaped. He made clear that he was still in contact with our parents, but had established firm boundaries with them. He said our father had had a stroke the previous year and was significantly physically diminished. Our mother was his caretaker. He did not use these details to request reconciliation, merely as information he thought I might want to have. Most importantly, Zachary validated everything I had always said about our childhood. He confirmed the abuse, including witnessing incidents I had forgotten or repressed. He expressed admiration for my courage in escaping and building a life for myself. He asked for nothing, not even a response, just offered his perspective and support should I ever want it. After careful consideration and discussion with Dr. Harrison, I responded briefly. I thanked him for his email and validation. I made clear I had no interest in contact with our parents under any circumstances, but that I was open to a careful, gradual rebuilding of a relationship with him, only with firm boundaries around discussions of our parents. Over the next several months, Zachary and I exchanged occasional emails, then texts, then finally a video call. It was strange and healing to reconnect with the one person who shared my specific childhood experiences, now that he had come to recognize the truth of them. We developed a careful, limited relationship that respected my boundaries and acknowledged our complicated shared history. Through all these experiences, I learned crucial lessons about trauma, trust, and boundaries. I learned that not everyone will comprehend trauma, even those who claim to love you. I learned that some people are so committed to their vision of family harmony that they cannot accept uncomfortable truths about abuse. I learned that it is not only acceptable but necessary to walk away from those who do not respect your boundaries, no matter how much you may love them. Most importantly, I learned that I am the expert on my own experience. No one else gets to determine what happened to me, how it affected me, or what I need to heal. No one else gets to decide who deserves access to my life. My boundaries are mine to set and enforce. the scared 17-year-old who fled her home with nothing but a backpack has become a strong, independent 26-year-old woman with a career, friends, and a life built on her own terms. The journey from there to here has not been easy or straight, but each step, even the painful ones with Ashley, has taught me something valuable about myself and about what I deserve. True love, I now understand, is not about grand gestures or perfect weddings. It is about profound respect for another person's reality, experiences, and boundaries. It is about believing someone when they tell you who they are and what they have survived. It is about supporting healing without imposing your own timeline or expectations. I do not know what the future holds for me, but I know I will face it on my own terms, surrounded by people who truly see and believe me. That knowledge, that certainty, is the most precious gift I have given myself through all of this. If you have experienced something similar, whether family abuse, sexual assault, or the unique pain of having your trauma dismissed by someone you trusted, please know you are not alone. Your experiences are valid. Your boundaries are yours to set, and you deserve people in your life who believe you without question. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please like and subscribe to support others sharing their journeys of healing from family abuse. Leave a comment, sharing how you have maintained your boundaries with people who dismissed your experiences. Have you ever had someone you trusted betray you by contacting people you had cut off for your own safety? How did you handle it? Your stories help others feel less alone in their healing journeys.